Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
As we said, it was a raucous crowd this week as many gathered at the Wicomico Youth and Civic Center in Salisbury over a proposal to eliminate the Wicomico County Executive position. Under fire was the County Executive, Julie Giordano, who was adamant about fighting to keep that position, and of course there was much division amidst the speakers. We sat down with Mike Dunn, president of the Greater Salisbury Committee, to talk about this issue. He's also a former president of the City Council as well as a former corporate underwriter here at the station. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Don. It's always a pleasure to be here.
So let's start back to the early years, because we had a succession of reforms, including the revenue cap. That was obviously followed by the county executive position. How did that flow in terms of where we are today, at least in terms of that position?
Yeah, well, in my view, so in 1999, right, the Wicomico County Council, prior to when we had a county executive, they instituted a 46-cent tax increase during budget time, literally this time of year. That's 23% increase in 1 year. It passed. Well, 1 year later, a local group called Voice, V-O-I-C-E, I forget what it stood for, they rose up and they did a voter-led referendum to put in place a revenue cap. Because of the action taken the year before by the Wicomico County Council, a group of citizens said, no, that's not right. They rose up, led a wonderful citizen-led campaign, got their question on the ballot in 2000, and that question was, should we put in place a revenue cap? It passed overwhelmingly. So that's 2000. Then 4 years later, on the ballot, an initiative out of the county council, the members of the county council at that time, they took a look and said, hey, all right, we did this revenue cap as a result of this property tax increase. Maybe we should think about creating a position of county executive. We're growing as a county. Perhaps we need someone who can kind of look and cast that vision for Wicomico County. Perhaps we've outgrown the time when 7 part-time legislators and a county administrator appointed by them should be the only part of county government. And so in 2004, they put on the ballot a charter change to create the position of county executive. It also passed. And so then in 2006, we had our first election for the brand new position of county executive. And that election was won by Rick Pollitt. And Rick Pollitt served as our first county executive until 2008. So that's sort of how that began.
Now, obviously, Rick was coming in at a moment which this position was not necessarily well defined. I mean, kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
How did he handle that? What was his tenure like, particularly in relationship to the council?
Yeah, and I misspoke. I apologize. He served 2 terms. So he served from 2006 up until 2014. So at the beginning, everybody, in my view, we were all watching it. How will this work? Well, if you know Rick Pollitt, he's a Democrat by affiliation. He's also one of the nicest human beings in this community. So everybody enjoyed Rick Pollitt. And Rick had to hire a staff, and Rick was trying to feel his way through things. In my view, the county council was also trying to assume this new role in a bit of a shared governance way. And so I think there has always been some tension. I think there has always been an institutional belief by the county council as a body, right? There have been a lot of different county council members, but I don't think that they have ever fully embraced having this office of county executive. Then when one of their own, county council member Bob Culver, decided to challenge Rick Pollitt, he was seen as an underdog. Rick, by his own acknowledgement, under-campaigned, and lo and behold, Bob Culver becomes the county executive in 2014. And Bob brought a certain style. There was a combativeness to Bob. Bob was a very unique individual. And so tensions began. And really, those tensions have been part of the give and take between the council and the executive since the election of Bob Culver in 2014.
Because one of the things that struck me about Bob Culver, and I remember when he came in, was it was almost from the get-go that there was this tension. I mean, he wanted to say, for instance, review some of the plans for some of the educational buildings as an example, even though they had spent years looking at it. He said, no, we can do this another way. Obviously, I think he lost that one, as I recall.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, he had a vision that was very strong in terms as an executive.
Yeah.
And including personnel issues, by the way,
Correct.
which is nothing new, right?
That's right.
So what was that dynamic? I mean, why did that happen?
Yeah, what was interesting about Bob, I can remember this like it was yesterday. In his, in his opening, remarks when he was elected in his first formal meeting, he took each 7 members of the council and he said, of you, you're going to be the director of media. He said of me, I'm going to be the director of agriculture. I'm going to be your secretary. So he gave these names and kind of called the council members secretaries. He meant that in a complimentary way, that you have expertise here. I'm going to call you the secretary of X. You have expertise there. That was meant as a goodwill gesture, but I don't believe it was received that way. And so I think the council looked at that and said, no, we're not secretaries of anything. We're the legislative body. And so, look, if you look at politics across the country in today's world, there are very few instances where it's kumbaya. Pick your state, pick your governor and his or her state legislature, the president of the United States and the push and pull with Congress, etc. So in some ways, what's happening here now, this tension, which is leading to this potential decision by the county council to send this decision to create a county executive form of government back to the voters 18 years after they already voted it in, is a continuation of that tension that exists out there in our political zeitgeist.
How effective was Culver in getting what he wanted, and how did it differ, say, from what the council, for instance, thought should happen?
Yeah, I can give you one real example that has always stuck out with me. At our civic center, there was a something in the will of the family who had donated the land to build the civic center. And in that will, it said no alcohol can ever be served or sold on this property. So for 40 plus years, nobody touched that. Nobody challenged it. So it was harming the civic center's ability to draw and get more revenue, get better acts, et cetera, because they couldn't sell alcohol. So Bob Culver, as the county executive, took this on. He took it on. He took on the will. He used this as a position, and lo and behold, we can now sell liquor and alcohol at the Civic Center. So there's an example that a policy that had been in place forever was never challenged by the county council, but a county executive comes along, and I guess with that ability to kind of set a vision and go into some policy things that he, in his case, wanted to pursue. That's what a county executive brings you. They get an opportunity to put forth, I think we should paint every tree in Wicomico County purple. And that's an idea. Now that's then has to be debated with a county council. So it just has always added this extra layer of a county executive setting an agenda, setting a vision, and a county council having to legislate from that vision. And sometimes it's gone well, and sometimes it hasn't gone well.
How effective do you think he was in terms of all the plans that he had for the county? I know towards the end of his life, and I think Mike Lewis, our sheriff, talked about how when he discovered that he was terminally ill, that he said, well, but I've got all these other things I really want to do. How effective in terms of that broad sweep do you think?
I'll tell you, Don, the very last time I saw Bob Culver, his administrative director, Wayne Strausberg, texted me. This was during COVID, about 10:30 in the morning. hey, we are going to remove that Confederate marker from the courthouse of the lawn in the courthouse. And I said, when are you doing that? He said, in about 15 minutes. I said, can I come? He goes, you better hurry. So Bob Culver was literally weeks away from dying, and he made a personal, one of the more courageous things that I've ever seen a political person do. Bob was out there literally, he had help. He was out there twisting that Winder sign off. They brought up a van. I grabbed my cell phone. I got video of it. That video was then used by some historic folks that are, monitoring these sorts of things. They ask for permission, of course. So look at that. There's another example. So is serving alcohol at the Civic Center, does that make or break Wicomico County? No. Does removing of a very controversial Confederate sign from the courthouse? Some would say, yeah, that's a significant thing. And Bob Culver had once told then Mayor Jake Day, that marker will be moved over my dead body. And think about how Bob had transformed as an individual. He's at the end of his life with no fanfare. He went, called some people, they got some wrenches out, they loaded that marker into the back of a van, and that was that. When it happened, Bob was very ill. I said, Bob, can I shake your hand? He goes, absolutely. And I went and I shook his hand and I said, thank you. And, so how does that tie into what's going on now? I don't know, Don, but it's short of having a county executive. Would that Confederate marker potentially still be standing? Would we be buying beer when we go to see the Harlem Globetrotters? Would we have a Connolly Mill Park? I don't know. Would we have Pirates Wharf? I don't know. But these are specific things that County Executive Culver made happen.
On a state level, how important do you think, and we'll sort of look at Culver's tenure for this example, how effective do you think, or how necessary do you think it is to have this singular voice, as opposed to, say, maybe it's the county president, county council president, I don't know, but that you have that office up in Annapolis arguing for whatever it is that you want? Unquestionably,
both County Executive Culver and County Executive Giordano have made it a policy. They go to Annapolis with frequency. It can't hurt. That's my own personal take on it. To your point, there are 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland. They've got, every one of them has people in Annapolis during those 90 days doing their thing. And so having the titular head of the county government, Julie Giordano, I believe, goes every Wednesday, whether she needs to go, quote unquote, or doesn't. She's there. She's developed a relationship with Governor Moore. Bob Culver was able to develop a relationship with Governor Hogan. So as I look at it, it can't hurt. It's part of their job to go up there and advocate for the things that we need in Wicomico County.
Is there a sense that things may not get done if we didn't have this kind of point person, that we would not be as effective as a lobby in that legislative body?
Well, I think
body?
that's something
because we're on the Eastern Shore,
yeah,
okay?
Absolutely.
And it's in the legislature. Let's be honest. The legislature is dominated by folks like on the Western Shore, and particularly out of the populous urban areas.
Let's look at two significant things that changed our community forever when we didn't have a county executive. In the mid-1970s, we did not have Warwick Community College. Proud to say that the Greater Salisbury Committee set up a task force, and some combination of GSC members and local county council people went to Annapolis, lobbied to get seed money to make a determination, and did we need a community college? 50 years later, we have a community college. The second thing, go back to the mid-1990s, the Delmarva Shorebirds. Minor league hockey was coming to Wicomico County. We did not have a county executive at the time. That took a tremendous amount of lobbying effort, the Maryland Stadium Authority, Purdue Farms, and the Purdue family. So those are two significant things that occurred when we didn't have a county executive. So to answer your question, I believe that the significant things in our community. Right now, we're working on, of course, as you know, the library moving to the Ward Museum and a performing arts center. I believe there will always be an avenue and an opportunity for things to move forward, whether we have a county executive or whether we don't have a county executive.
So I want to return to the current situation.
Sure.
Obviously, we had a meeting this week. People on both sides of this issue, including Julie herself, was up there talking about how we need this and other people saying they didn't.
Yeah.
Is there something special, do you think, about this particular county executive? I mean, I know there have been a couple of instances that it really has been very contentious, and I raised those with Julie herself.
Sure.
Is there something that just, at this point there's some breaking point, or is it just that these guys are leaving? Or, I mean, what do you think?
You're asking me to get into the mind of the 7 members of the county council that are considering this, and I can't
My job.
do that. That's your job. My job is to say I literally don't know. Are there people in the community? I was not attending. I could not attend last night, but I got some feedback from it. Are there people in the community who believe that this is a personal attack and that they are eliminating the position because of the person who holds the office? There is unquestionably that perception, and I'm told that was brought forth last night by more than a few people who spoke last night. The county council's contention is that in 18 years, it has proven to be less than effective. They think that moving forward without a county executive is the way to go. They point to the vote that was close, and they go, why don't we look at it? It's been 18 years. Hey, people of Wicomico County, we're going to let you, if you will, vote again on it and re-vote on it. And whatever that vote is, hopefully the next county council doesn't, hey, let's try to get rid of the county executive again. If this is the path that they're going to take, and I'm told they did not vote on this last night, so I don't know if they're going down this path.
Later this month, yeah.
But their public voices, they have said, we're simply presenting the people of Wicomico County a chance to look at it. Now that we've had the office for 18 years, is this still the direction that you want us to go in? And you'll get a chance to make that determination in November, potentially.
Because I attended the one of the county council members' sessions when they discussed this idea, obviously scheduling the hearing, and it was clear for me that it looked like a majority on this council, not just simply we want to put it on the ballot, but we want to put it on the ballot so we can get rid of it. I mean, there's that antipathy towards the position.
In politics, Don, you've been studying the game long enough. An issue like this often doesn't come forward unless the votes are there to move it forward. So I'm kind of in agreement with you that it appeared, I was at that meeting, that there was sentiment of at least 4 members of the county council to move this forward. Now, I thought there was going to be a vote last night. That doesn't mean that they thought there was going to be a vote, but they did not vote on it. And so, maybe time will tell in the next couple of weeks, obviously. If they want to get it on the ballot, they've got to pass this sooner rather than later. And so we'll see what they do. But I'm in agreement with you that there certainly appeared to be some sentiment toward eliminating the office of the county executive.
Because I know, as a matter of fact, they've scheduled, I think, a date to vote on, I think, later this month. Okay. But they wanted, John Cannon said he wanted to have the hearing to get the input, that kind of thing, and the arguments. Yeah.
That was 100% the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And John's smart enough to know that we just can't pass this notion. That's why they moved it to the Civic Center last night, because they were anticipating a crowd. They got a crowd. I'm told that it was a little bit more than half of the people who spoke were not in favor of getting rid of the office of county executive. I'm told it got fairly contentious at times. I have not seen it. So I would expect it to be a contentious issue. And so I'm actually glad to hear that the public came out either for or against it in a pretty strong way last night.
So looking ahead, one of the things that struck me was John Cannon seemed to be a fairly even keel kind of guy. I've watched him in these council meetings.
100%.
Whether you agree with his politics or not, beside the point, he certainly tries to make the trains run on time, right?
He certainly does.
So with his experience, and he's been on the council a long time, how do you see him coming to this decision or this inclination? I mean, he's.
Again,
Because he's overseen a very, at times, very contentious
Yes.
group of people to begin with. I mean, and now
I can only,
yeah.
you got to watch the actions, right? And the actions are that they are considering putting this on the ballot. So
Yeah.
I can only conclude that he and at least several other members of the council believe that perhaps getting rid of the office of county executive is a better way and a better form of government. Simple as that. No read to. Now, what are the motives that led to that? Again, to your point, we've watched for nearly 2 years a fairly high level of contention between Julie Giordano, our county executive, and the county council. Just go hit Pack 14, the show we're on right now, pick a meeting, and you're often going to see a high level of frustration and just I see it this way, you see it that way, and it's been a little difficult to watch at times. And so maybe the county council has concluded, or President Cannon has concluded that, you know what, we can do better. Let's let the voters decide if we can do better, and perhaps it makes it onto the ballot in November.
We've been speaking with Mike Dunn. He is president of the Greater Salisbury Committee, also former president of the Salisbury City Council, and also he was in charge of corporate underwriting at this station. We appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us.
Don, as always, thank you so much.
You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.